the legal spokeswoman for Donald Trump, and one of his lawyers, Alina Habba. Alina, thank you for having us, being with us. We saw 6 jurors, I believe, picked today. How in the world is this man could get a fair trial in Manhattan, New York City, with its judge and this prosecutor?
Impossible. I think it's impossible, quite honestly. We're in a blue state. That's all by design. Don't get it twisted, folks. They do this intentionally, just like they're bringing the one in Washington, just like Georgia. They pick these states on purpose. They choose DAs and AGs that all have one thing in common: Soros backing and people like them. And they're on a political mission. This really isn't about the law. It's not about law and order. It's not about the Constitution. It's about the demise of the same. And we're watching it happen before our eyes. If there was any question with the civil cases that I went through, well, now it's clear. You know, the fact that this 8-year-old, way past statute of limitations case is being heard in New York is pathetic. It's obvious, and it has to stop.
Alina, Maggie Haberman was in the courtroom yesterday, and a reporter from the New York Times, and she claims that Trump fell asleep. I mean, weigh in on this. Is she wrong? I mean, she very adamantly believes he fell asleep, and he says he didn't. What do you weigh in on this, please?
I was not there. I find that a remarkable story at best. President Trump, he reads a lot. I don't know what he was doing. I wasn't there. There are no cameras. I wish there were, but he's been sitting there as he's forced to, at the threat of going to jail if he's not sitting there for what I assume would be a very mundane day. They are going through jury selection. There were a tremendous amount of motions being heard yesterday. But no, look, I wasn't there, so I can't comment on that. I find that to be a ridiculous thought, though.
You know Michael Cohen yourself? Do you know him personally?
Yes, I do.
I do too. I've known him a long time. He wanted to be part of the Trump administration. When he wasn't, he felt jilted, and that's when he turned on Trump. My point, here's my question. For him to go out and have these comments over the weekend on news shows with Stephanopoulos and CNN and others, or wherever he goes to, trashing Trump, I mean, really being degrading to the defendant. Alina, how is he not censored? And this judge is going to make a decision whether or not Trump should be fined for what he said, and all he's trying to do is point out the inequity of this trial.
Yeah, that's spot on, Eric. Honestly, the fact that there's a First Amendment violatory gag on President Trump right now and people that he controls, quote unquote, is ridiculous. Many witnesses, not just him, are out there saying whatever they want to say to whomever they want to say it in a very abrasive manner, and profiting, not to mention, from their Substacks and otherwise. But when President Trump chooses to respond or repost something that's clear evidence that will show that their motivation is crooked and his is not, and that he was in fact in the White House when all of this was happening, he gets threatened with being put in jail and fined. That is the state of America, unfortunately, that we are in. I guess what I'm lost on is how the judge could say that they're worried about jury influence and tainting of a jury by President Trump, but not by them. And I would like to see us file some motions to basically say, hey, look, you're either going to sequester them or you're going to stop this and fine them. They know they're active. They know they're going to be in these cases, in these trials called as potential witnesses. Why aren't they the ones being sanctioned? It's a very good question.
It's crazy not to. I can't imagine. I think you get 10 strikes. In other words, this juror we don't like, you can strike this person. You only get 10. There's going to be hundreds who are going to be, I guess, processed or questioned. It's crazy that with such a left-leaning city and the way they're treating Trump already, the deck is stacked against them. This idea of not allowing Trump to go to Barron's high school graduation, is that normal? Is this something out of the norm, or do defendants typically are not allowed to leave the courtroom for these types of things, or would the court sometimes do that for a defendant?
Of course they would do that. There are times that there are holidays that people observe, that you build out a schedule, you give the jurors days off, you let somebody go for a wedding, a holiday, jurors are actually not going to sit because one juror yesterday said he had a wedding in June and they were concerned that this would run into that. These are the types of things that a normal judge would process, consider, and be a human being, frankly, about it. You're not just an attorney. You're not just a judge. You're a human being. And there was no murder here. There was nothing. There was somebody in the accounting department at the Trump organization while the president was sitting in the Oval Office that booked a legal issue as a legal issue in the accounting records. And now they're making a misdemeanor a felony. What is the rush? The only rush that we have is November 5th, 2024. And this is the only trial that'll probably go forward. And this judge knows that. So he's being completely unaccommodating. He is being brash and frankly inconsiderate, not just to the president, but to the jurors that are, observing Passover or Sabbath on Friday and things of that nature. He said he would have some accommodation, but he's not thinking about the lawyers. It's a full court press, and I think it's inconsiderate. I think it shows an agenda. I think that he's giving a lot of reasons for jurors not to want to serve on this panel.
He's also giving you a lot of reasons, the Trump team, for appeal is what he's actually doing. Yeah. Take a listen to Sunny Hostin over on The View. A couple of comments. Just listen to this soundbite. There's two things I want to unpack afterwards. Go ahead.
This is a legal nerd's Super Bowl, right? Like, I'm kind of excited about the fact.
That's the part I need to.
But that's exciting to someone like me because, the 50 people said, I can't even be impartial, which I admire them for their forthrightness and their honesty, because you have to be honest when you're a juror. But I still believe that they will be able to find an impartial jury. They are never going to find someone that doesn't know about the former twice impeached loser president.
Yeah. Ooh. Your thoughts?
I think that it's going to be really hard. I think that finding an impartial jury will be incredibly difficult. I think that until you've sat in court and represented a former president, whomever that president may be, not just President Trump, to say that politics, especially the divisiveness that our country has right now, would not play a part in it is just naive. There's no possible way in the state of New York to completely have a clean jury. It's just not possible. And on top of that, you have a judge who is clearly biased, who's regulating and determining what evidence this jury says. So lawyers can be lawyers, but if we're not allowed to introduce evidence, and I've had this happen in my prior cases, then we can't make them see things. Right. Yeah. So he has a way of swaying them. Well, and that's an element that people aren't talking about.
What I wanted to do is I wanted to play that because she called Trump a loser president. She called it her Super Bowl, watching him being raked through the coals on these lawfare trials. You know what I'd love to see, Alina? That was Sunny Hostin, and right next to it was Alyssa Farah, who used to work for Trump, who now has somehow become Trump deranged right now. I would love to see Alina Habba on that fifth seat on The View and just have someone fight for MAGA and fight for Trump instead of five voices that are completely deranged leftist lunatics. Love to see it, Alina on The View. Let's make it happen, folks. What do you say?
I've said that, Eric. They like to talk about me, but they're afraid to face me. And that's usually the way they go. They're cowards because they talk a big game. They say what their producers want them to say. But are they actually speaking about Constitution? Are they speaking about things that could affect Biden, not just Trump? And I wonder if they've ever been actually challenged. Instead, Whoopi Goldberg gets louder and louder and tries to deflect. And it's very clear to anybody with a brain. But if you want to sit down and have a hard conversation, I'm welcome to be invited on. I'd be happy to show up.
Love to see it. Alina Habba, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us.